All right, what's good, everybody? It's me, Tim Keys, and I'm back with the second video to this series of the Reason comparison series, where I compare, the plug-in of Reason between other instruments such as Arturia and native instruments to help you determine and see how these plugins hold up against one another. And so for this video, I am using Arturia. And Arturia, if you know anything about them, they are basically a plug-in company that's been around for a long time. And they specialize in, making plugins that model, real hardware, be it both digital as well as analog. So if you're into synthesizers like the Moog, your ARP 2600s, your Oberheim Matrix, your Synclaviers, your DX7s, some of your other Oberheim hardware devices, your Prophet 5s, and so forth. This is the this is the package for you. So I got the Synclavier opened up. Synclavier was a synthesizer that came out back in like the late 70s, early 80s, and it was a powerhouse of a synthesizer, if you will, because let me make sure I'm recording this. Awesome. Because of the simple fact, I mean, you could do additive, it could do FM, and then later on, it had the ability to work with samples all in one box. And at the time, it was super duper expensive, like 22,000 dollars. So only your elite studios and your top tier artists had access to these type of synthesizers. People like Michael Jackson, Quincy Jones, those type of artists to be exact. And Arteria does a good job with, making plugins that, really bring the modeled experience of having, those type of synthesizers to you in a software format. So right here, we got the Synclavier. In the basic interface, you got some abilities to do FM modulation. You can adjust your chorus. And you got your volume, transpose and tuning. Your amp envelope onset. So you got some basic stuff like, in the immediate screen to get you started. You can also hit this partial tab and it will give you a few more options to utilize, such as your different partial settings, your harmonic envelope, which will determine, how those harmonics evolve and come out over time. I haven't really used this as much as I should have, so I am limited in my knowledge base. You get 12 partials to use or to work with. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. I click on the screen. There are 12 different, you know, partials that you can choose. And they could, be carriers or modulators. You can replace the synthesis or the synthesizer side of it with a sample. So 8-bit voice. Come on, go in, go in. Uh-oh. I'm gonna solo it out. It's been so long since I've messed with this. Analyze to the carrier. There we go. It's something I'm not doing right. But you get the drift. Like, it's very... You got your mixer. It's very comprehensive and it can be overwhelming, but there's a lot in here in terms of, you know, routing, modulation, you know, basically however you want to crank that sound out. There's a lot of options available to you. And then you have your effects units, different effects that you can utilize, delays, reverbs, flangers, you know, all the basics that you need to work your sound. So that's the synclavier. Let's do the DX7. Going to delete that track and I'm going to delete this one. Let's find the DX7. I'm not going to go over all of the features of Arturia because there's so many different synthesizers to choose from that it can get overwhelming. But you know, you get the drift. So as you can see, my computer is using a lot more resources. I was at 26%. Yeah, your computer usage will depend on the plugin that you're using. It will depend on, you know, the settings, how much polyphony, your playing style, and not your plugin, you're using your DAW. Because not all DAWs utilize a computer's resources equally. In my experience, Cakewalk does tend to eat up a little bit more CPU, and that's okay. The DX7 is Arturia's attempt to emulate the DX7. In my opinion, I thought it was a remarkable synthesizer in its own right. Some people complained that it didn't necessarily sound like a real DX7. There were a couple of things that you had to do to adjust the settings in order to make that happen. But, you know, the trade-off is, you know, look at what you get. The original DX7 only had one waveform that you used, and that was a sine wave. And regardless if you had a modulator or a carrier, you had the sine wave as your initial sample. You did not have any filters. You didn't have any filters at all. And you didn't have any effects. So everything was kind of, you know, limited, so to speak, to the sine waves, and the tones that you made were, I won't say limited to, everything was in the algorithms, and you had to know how to work those algorithms. You got 32, this one gives you 32. And basically, these algorithms are going to tell the synthesizer how the carriers and the modulators interact with one another. Which operator is the carrier, which operator is the modulator. And depending on the settings, it's going to dictate how those things interact with each other to make it sound. You can get really harsh tones. You can get traditional, almost analog-like tones. And you can get get stuff like that. So not too bad. I need a pad. Pardon me. So there's that. Again, you have your modulation matrix. You have your envelopes. And you have your effects. The original DX7 did not have effects. This one does. It has plenty. So again, that's a perk. Oh no, I don't want to do that. They have organs, different keyboards, physical model pianos. Sheesh. Yeah, there's a lot in the Arturia collection package that you can use to make your sound. They got the Mellotron if you get the new one. You get the Mellotron, you get the Emu 2. I don't have that. I didn't download it. So you get that, and if you're in the sample-based synthesis, it has a very nice way of handling samples. And yeah, it's remarkable. Depending on what you get in conjunction with the Arturia bundle, you may have had Pigments included. And if you bought Arturia, like the collection, when it was bundled with Pigments, I'll say in terms of synthesis, especially at this point in the game, there's pretty much nothing that you really need that Pigments can't do. Again, every synthesizer has its own way of doing things, and I have a video of Pigments up on my channel going over some of the features. But man, Pigments is ridiculous, especially now with the new additive engine that they put in. It's got granular, it's got subtractive based synthesis, it's got analog sounding synths built in terms of the waveforms, it's got wavetable synthesis. As you can do samples as well as granular. You can do a lot with Pigments. Pigments can be your own desert island synth, and you could be fine with that. I will show you this before I close out. I'll upload Analog Lab 5. Make sure I got everything put in. We're gonna wait on it to load up. I don't want my stuff to act up, so I'm waiting patiently. You can do it. You can do it. And then I'm going to sleep. Untitled. Come on. Don't down me yet. It's still responding. I should have took out the DX7 plugin first. There we go. Boom. So what I want to do real quick is I'm going to delete that and delete that. Boom. Uh-oh. Oh no, don't tell me I gotta do it again. No, you don't. Awesome. I was like, I don't want to have to load that up again. Please don't make me do that. So if you get the Arturia collection bundle, like version 8, they're on at this point, you get Analog Lab 5. And what Analog Lab 5 is essentially, it's basically like a hub for all of the instruments that are included in the Arturia lineup, with the exception of Spark, which Spark is a drum machine on steroids, if you will. It's pretty awesome. That being said, you get roughly 26 instruments at this point to choose from. So the ARP 2600, the B3, the Buchla Easel, the Clavinet, the CMI, Fairlight, the CS80, the CZ from Casio, the DX7, the Emulator 2, the another organ, Farfisa, the Juno 6. It's not a real Juno, but it's real nice. Jupiter, the Jupiter 8, the Matrix 12, Mellotron, the Mini V, the Modular Moog, the OBXA. You can do a multi setup, which will allow you to combine two instruments and, split it across the keyboard. A grand piano, the upright, Pigments, another stage piano, the Prophet 5, the VS, the SEM Oberheim, the string synth, Stage 73, Mark already said that. The Synclavier, you already saw that. The Synthi, a vocoder, the Vox Continental, and a Wurlitzer. Oh my word, there's so much here. And so if you get, Arturia Complete, not Complete 8, Arturia Collection 8 version, you get all of these synthesizers and you get Analog Lab 5. Analog Lab 5 by itself kind of operates as a rompler on steroids, if you will, in that it allows you can pretty much pick a preset of whatever you like, whatever you choose, and they lay out certain features within the interface like this. And yeah, you can just begin working to make your sound. If you have something like multi, with multi, I don't know how much juice I used. 31%. So yeah, it's all there. And I mean, even if you just had the Analog Lab by itself, you would get the ability to play these presets, and you would get the ability to modify the characteristics of these instruments, using this layout right here. But if you have the collection in its entirety, you can go in to these, devices and edit the preset. So you have a higher level of customization to stack and layer sounds a certain way to create different tones. However, it seems as you are only limited to two instruments. So unlike Reason, where Reason will not only allow you to layer and stack instruments, Reason's combinator can go very deep, essentially allowing you to construct and make your own instruments. You can't do that with this. You can circumvent that if you had Ableton and you use their instrument rack, or Bitwig. Bitwig has their own instrument rack, so it can be bypassed. But if you're in a different DAW that doesn't have a feature like that, then yeah, you're gonna miss some of that, because it won't be existent in Analog Lab. But you do get the ability to layer and stack to come up with very nice tones. So yeah, um, I don't want to go too far in depth into this because for the sake of time, you know, I don't want to bore you guys. But yeah, so I would say if you're looking for a collection of instruments that resemble, not just resemble, like having analog hardware, but are made to model the behavior and sound like very specific analog hardware, then this is the collection for you. I would definitely recommend trying it out and saving up and getting it. If you're someone who likes the ability to have a rack in front of you and simulate, hardware, but you don't necessarily want to emulate any one particular type of synthesizer from of old or of new, then I would say go with Reason. Reason will give you the ability to kind of like almost make your own instrument using the combinator because of its ability to do the CV routing. Analog Lab will not allow you to do that, but you can combine up to two instruments and stack them and layer them up. And sometimes it's all you need. Also, if you get Analog Lab or Arturia's collection in conjunction with Pigments, there's not a lot that you can't do because, again, Pigments is a powerhouse. The only downside with Pigments is that it can eat up a lot of CPU depending on the DAW you're using, your playing style, and your computer, because all of that comes into play. I'm running 16 gigs. I need to update to 32 gigs, but I also have an 8-core processor, and my hard drive is ridiculously full, and I need to install another hard drive and get that set up. So I'm not using so much, processing to play these sounds. I gotta start practicing again. But yeah, you can open this up and adjust it. It slowed down. There we go. So you can go and pick your different settings if you have the the collection. If you just have analog 5, you can't do that. But, there's some great plugins with the analog collection, with Arturia's collection. And yeah, if you decided that you didn't want to spend all of your money, or not all of your money, if you didn't want to buy the analog collection or the Arturia collection at once, you could just get Analog Lab. And again, it's got a boatload of sounds, it's got a boatload of synths and patches and presets that you can work with. You just can't go as in depth. But yeah, Arturia collection is very powerful in its own right. And so, yeah, I'm going to say it again. If you want devices that simulate the hardware of old and you want physical modeling instruments out the yin yang, Arturia collection is for you. And this is just their instrument collection. They have an effects collection as well. They also have Spark, which is their drum synthesizer, which is ridiculous. There's also Pigments, which I've did a video on that. Sonically speaking, I would say it's a matter of preference. CPU usage, it depends on your computer and your playing technique. I'd probably give CPU usage to Reason in terms of its edge. Um, I'd probably give overall Sonics and its ability to make different sounds. I'd probably give that over to Arturia because Arturia always updates their plugins and makes changes to the interfaces which in turn means, you know, updating its sound in some way, shape, or form. Reason, if you buy it, Subtractor has been the same since 2000, and nothing's wrong with that. But any extension of the sound will come from you knowing how to combine those instruments and creating different rack modules and effects, you know, signal flows, if you will, to get that sound out until they decide to update it. So I would give the edge to Arturia in terms of updates and in terms of what they add, its overall value, and how they, you know, they update their products. I would give that to Arturia, definitely. Um, I give Reason the advantage of its combinator if you want to create those custom sounds. And yeah, really get flexible in your routing and layering and stacking and, you know, making a new synthesizer without having to code it. That would go to Reason. So yeah, that's all I got for this video. I'm Tim Keys, and thank you for watching. Have a good one. Peace.